That alone, verse number 22. My love is mirrored in the glow of your smile. The verse. The happiness of another, that is my happiness. One's own joy is another's joy. This is the guiding principle. That action which is good for one person should bring happiness to another. Commentary. Watching the lives of various beings, anything from worms to the most contemplative yogi or seer, it is easy to see that all actions are motivated by the desire for happiness. Our motivations can be conscious or unconscious. Even so minor a thing as shifting your position as you sit here is only to make you more comfortable. If you cough, it is because there is an irritation you want to remove so you can feel better. The slightest movement we make is in search of a better adjustment, for greater happiness, because happiness is the main goal of life. In the search for happiness and in the actualization of it, our primary tools are the senses, the organs of perception, the organs of action, and the mind. Our hands itch for doing something. When we sit somewhere for a long time, we feel like getting up and walking. We cannot be silent for very long before we wish to talk and express ourselves. The 5 organs of action and organs of perception are all to be engaged in something. We find our happiness in engagement through these organs. We have 5 senses, so there are 5 kinds of happiness. In seeing alone, there are millions of varieties of things to be seen. We look at very minute things. We look at very large things. We look at bright things and dark things, at the colorful and the colorless. In the same way, each sense organ has its own world of variegation. Our affectivity lies between our perceiving mind and the things that are perceived. There are 2 real causes of happiness. One is obvious and the other is hidden. First, let us discuss the former, which is when the cause is known to us. We have many latent urges in our mind, all waiting for a favorable environment to provide an opportunity for their actualization. Hunger is a biological urge of this type. A hungry person is looking for an opportunity to get some food. It may begin as an unconscious motivation, but it soon becomes conscious. So we go to a place where food is available, such as a kitchen or restaurant. Inside is hunger, outside is the availability of food. When these are brought together, we are satisfied. Of course, we don't want to just stuff something into our mouths. The whole presentation is important. We like it to be served on a neat table, properly set with nice utensils, by someone who is friendly. It should please the eye and smell delicious. In India, people enjoy eating with their hands also. When foods are mixed with the fingers, they have a special kind of feeling. So even before the food hits their mouth, they can enjoy its touch. Then it is tasted. Finally, the food becomes nourishment, creating metabolic changes in us, and we have sensations of satiation and relaxation. This whole range of pleasures is involved in the simple act of just satisfying hunger. There are many preferences involved in this priyam, or this main item of the fulfillment of an urge to make us really happy. We prefer to eat in a certain restaurant, or to be served by a certain person, to eat food prepared in a certain way. Some people like their food boiled. others steamed, and still others fried. We stress the quality of the object as the main condition for happiness. Happiness is thus considered as an external factor which is coming into us. Our desire is inside, happiness is manifesting outside. So it becomes a conditional factor. Narayana Guru tells us that we become confused by thinking of happiness as an external factor. The Guru begins this verse with a word that has an equivocal meaning, aparan. When you see a total stranger, that person is entirely different from you. You have your own body and that person has theirs. But when you look at each other, you find something pleasing. That person becomes an object of happiness. Now you greet each other and enjoy each other's company. Each of you say, I am so and so. There are two separate I's, I and you and I, two separate people. Then later you say, let us sit here and talk. The I has now been transformed. There is an us, where before were two I's. The other is now melting into the not other. Paran is other, aparan not other. When I and you change into we or us, the other has changed into no more another. This is the implication of the word the Guru uses. We are no more others. Now let us both go to the restaurant and eat something. You both go. One asks, what do you want? You tell me what you like. No, no, no. You please say what you like. How about this particular dish? Yes, let's both have that. So they order it. Each wants to make a great concession to the other, conceding to their wishes. At least 5 minutes will be wasted finding out what the other person likes, because each is being a kind of martyr in the cause of love. It's very beautiful. I read in a novel about two middle-aged women who were living together. One wanted to get up first so she could make tea and bring it on a tray to the other before she woke up. She stealthily got up and tiptoed to the kitchen, where she was surprised to find the other one already making tea for her. All through the story, they were making little martyrdoms to please each other like that. This is called Swakiya Priyam. Let my own happiness be your happiness. Let your happiness be my happiness. It is this commonality of happiness that unites two people. Then there is no more the other. When we desire something, it is because of a latent urge. In the coming together of two people, there is a need to love and a need to be loved. There are needs to eat, to do some work, and to find fellowship. All these motivations come from urges. When an urge becomes strong, it becomes a desire. When a desire is promoted, it becomes a wish. And when a wish is promoted, it becomes a will. A will, when actualized, becomes an action. Thus, it begins with desire and ends in action. All actions in which we are engaged have behind them a motivation, and they involve things or persons outside us. So to speak, the entire process is implied in the term priyam. If things and persons outside us are within the scheme of our action, we have to see that it is not unilateral. We must make bilateral arrangements in the action setup. A brute is only motivated by its own urges. It does not look for a bilateral agreement. It unilaterally charges at the object of pleasure. Lovers do the same thing that rapists do with their victims. Physically, there is no difference in what they are doing. The distinction is that one is unilateral and the other is bilateral. In rape, the happiness of the other person is not looked into. One is only caring for his own happiness. What was beautiful then becomes an abominable crime, instilling fear and revulsion in the victim. There is also a hidden cause of happiness. We are not merely the senses, the mind, and our latent interest. Behind all this is a self-luminous light which assures us of the existence of everything. In fact, it is the primeval existence. It is the ground of all existence. It is only because of this existence that anything is possible. Yet we only see the existence of a person or the existence of an object and not existence as such. We forget that it is through our participation in the general existence that we become existent. This existence is the existence of knowledge, of a great awareness, of an illuminating consciousness which covers the knower, the known, and knowledge. The existence of one thing and another thing have between them a homogeneity. I can present you with an existing apple and an existing pear in the same dish because the apple exists, the pear exists, and the dish exists. When I poetically say, "Here is an apple, a pear, and also my love for you," you can see the fruit, but you do not see what we call love in the dish. In the words, "I am giving you my love," is an idea. The other person who feels sentimental about this expression becomes resonant to it inside, experiences a similar sentiment and replies, "Yes, truly, this is offered in love." The existence of the pear and the existence of love are not of the same order. Yet because of the knowledge of love in you and the other person, there is a homogeneity of that particular kind of knowledge. The pear and the apple can come together as pure existential knowledge, and the love with which they are offered comes phenomenologically. The existential and the phenomenological are different, and yet they become one. In anyone you see or experience, all your concepts and ideas, and your entire social, moral, and spiritual history also come along as part of your perception. Therefore, all existential experiences automatically change into phenomenological experiences. There is still one more aspect here. The overall existence, this all-embracing consciousness of knowledge, is also revealing how one happiness pervades everything. The happiness of seeing a sunset, the happiness of eating a good breakfast, of holding the hand of someone we love, of reading or writing poetry, of painting, of listening to beautiful music, the happiness in all the variety of things you enjoy through the five senses, or that are performed by the five organs of action, conceived by mind and enjoyed by mind, are all part and parcel of one universal experience of happiness. You are that. When you realize your real nature from within, there cannot be another, because what is seemingly another is only due to external diversity. In reality, it is part of the same existence, of the same consciousness, and the same happiness. Thus the paran, or the otherness, ceases. There is no other, there is only that. Calling attention to this, the Guru says, "That thou art, you are that." Through a realization of the self, we come to know there is no other. I cannot pinch my left hand with my right hand and expect to not feel it since they are separate things. I still feel the pain. If I hold my left hand in the right hand, the tenderness, the happiness is neither of the left hand or the right hand. It is my own happiness. Thus, from inside, when you see the oneness of all things, there cannot be a separation of my happiness and another's happiness. For a realized soul, an awakened one, whatever he or she is doing is a spontaneous expression of self love. It is not an ego centered love, it is the love of the Supreme Self for itself. The reason God created the universe, if you believe in that, is for God's own joy, not for anyone else's. This is why it is said in the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, no husband loves the wife for the sake of the wife, but for the sake of the joy of the self. No wife loves the husband for the sake of the husband, but for the sake of the joy of the self. No parent loves the child for the sake of the child, but for the sake of the joy of the self. No man loves wealth for the sake of wealth, but for the sake of the joy of the self. In none of these places is the reference to the ego as the self. It is to the universal self, the self that is in all. Two things then can bring us together. One is the actualization of an interest or an urge in us, and the other is the universality of the self. When someone like Jesus Christ or the Buddha comes to the world and engages in an action, they are filled with the universal sorrow of mankind. They engage in activity in order to reverse this pain and suffering. This can be compared to and contrasted with our individually oriented actions. Take, for instance, a person who takes delight in becoming a physician. It fulfills a certain drive in him to find self-expression through service to others. In addition, it is a means of livelihood and a way to express his talent. In the orientation of an ordinary person who does not have the deep insight of the Spirit, it is only the motivational urge to be a physician that is getting actualized here. There is another person who is ill, and there is a need for him to be cured and recover from his illness. He comes to the doctor and says, "Please heal me, I am suffering." The doctor replies, "I am most pleased to render my service to you. I want you to be cured. You should not suffer." Thus, the physical, personal need for a patient to be cured and for a doctor to render his service bring them together. They enter into a bipolarity. They are no longer two separate entities. They belong to one common context of therapy from which both benefit. By rendering the service, the doctor becomes happy, and by receiving the service, the patient becomes happy. If the physician also has the mind of the physician of all physicians, like Christ, Buddha, or Krishna, then he is not only seeing his action as a means of livelihood and expression of talent, but as a correction which he is bringing to his own universal body that is now ailing. He is curing only himself. If the patient is also oriented this way, he sees that the universal benevolence is acting in the form of a doctor. He is filled with gratitude, not specially to this doctor, though that's also there, but to the universal benevolence in the manifestation of this world. An engineer has his skill and the need to perform it. He invents a machine, then he makes it, sells it, or installs it for someone who has a need to be relieved of some kind of work. That person feels happy for the engineer's service, and the engineer has the satisfaction of doing his job well. Whatever role we are playing, whether carpenter, smith, plumber, teacher, anyone, there is a bipolarity involved in it. In that bipolar situation, we become dialectical counterparts, in which a common interest fuses us together. Then the other person ceases to be just another. There is a coming together. So we can come together from the side of the latent urges as well as from the side of realization. Narayana Guru, as a realized person, is revealing to us, O man, please do not think that there is any other. It is only seemingly so. Let all your actions be directed to universal happiness, to the universal actualization of happiness. When you engage yourself in an action, look for your counterpart. That comes from above. From below, you also realize that this counterpart is your own self. In this way, you get a double correction and a double incentive to ensure the happiness of all concerned. And the free translation of verse 22 is as follows: What is dear to another should spell endearment to me also. This is the correct policy. Therefore, whatever good one does should be so intended as to be beneficial to others also.